going on, guys? Welcome to the LowKick MMA Weekly Roundup. I'm your host, Ryan Galloway, here with Jordan. How you doing, Jordan?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Not too bad. We had a decent card this past weekend. One that was meant to be a bit of a quiet one, I guess, because we just had the pay-per-view. So this was kind of like a low-key one in comparison. The main event was an exciting fight on paper. Not so exciting in practice, but it wasn't bad. But the main card pretty much delivered on most fronts. What did you think of it?
Yeah, it was a good card. Obviously, they're trying to push Islam as he's being billed as the next Khabib, and he's showing signs of that. He's maybe not as exciting in the media conferences. The fighting style, I feel like he could have really finished this fight, and we'll get into the fight. But I feel like he could have finished this fight whenever he wanted, and it took 4 rounds. So yeah, he's a star on the rise. He seems like a potential contender in the division. And besides that, we had some big standout performances with potential fight of the year candidates as well. So it delivered more than I expected anyway.
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't a bad card, the main card anyway. We'll jump straight in at the top then. Islam Makhachev against Thiago Moises. Obviously, Makachev claims that he can't get fights. He wanted a guy above him. He was ranked 9 coming into this. He got number 14, Moises, who, let's be honest, wasn't number 14. He got thrown in the rankings because of a main event, which is fair enough. He's a very talented fighter, but like I predicted, I thought Makachev would be better than him pretty much everywhere, and that seemed to be the story of this fight, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. He dominated them in every facet. I think once he took it to the floor. Well, it was pretty dominant. The jiu-jitsu got shut down. Obviously, Moises, he is a tricky guy on the floor, and Makachev had no problems. But as you said, this is not the fight he wanted, and I don't think this is the fight Makachev should have been in after beating Drew Dober so easily. So hopefully the next one, some people step up. I'm sure they will now. He's got a name. It's a main event slot if you're facing Makachev, or it's on a pay-per-view card. So I think we've got to see him in with, the top 5, the top 7 or 8 people now.
And so you touched on it there. There was no weaknesses, you noticed in Makachev's game. I mean, look, if you look at the stats, they don't lie. He outlanded him, I think, 8-1 or something. He dominated him on the feet, on the ground. Moises had him in a heel hook for like 1 second, but that was it. Was there anything else you noticed, or did Makachev look pretty complete in this one?
No, he looks brilliant, but he should be looking brilliant against this level of opponent. We've been pushing him. He's being built. This is his problem. He's being billed as the heir to Khabib's throne. Or sometimes I'm sure Jeffrey Mendes says he's better than Khabib, or people say he's better than Khabib. And I'm not seeing that yet. And the only blip we have seen is when he got knocked out, and that's the difference. I was just writing a story about Dan Hooker's interview saying it's hard to build on his next Khabib when you've got video footage of someone knocking him out. So I think people will enter the fight with Islam with, a route to victory. There's a way to get him. You can crack him on the chin. You can put him away. And it weren't the same with Khabib. So he's got a solid chin. There was no dents in the armor. But so that's all I see. But that was, how many years ago? 6 years ago, something like that. So I'm sure he's evolved. I'm sure he's got better with his striking defense. And it's we really need to see him in with these upper echelon guys to see if he does have any weaknesses, because I don't think Thiago Moises, or all due respect, is the guy to expose any weaknesses.
Yeah, 100%. But his style and what he showed, like the skill he showed in this fight and in his previous fights as well, especially the Dober one, I read a lot into that. Look, a lot of these guys that are the top 5, top 8 of the division right now are kind of like not specialists by any means, but they favor one part of the fight rather than being completely well-rounded. Poirier might be an exception. Chandler might be an exception, although I think his size will do him problems against someone like Makachev or some of the other guys in the division as well. I know I said that with Hooker, it wasn't the case, but we'll see. Whereas Makachev seems to be well-rounded everywhere, but that grappling seems to be just like above everyone else. Moises, like you said leading into this one, is a great jiu-jitsu practitioner. Thing is, when you're trying to do your jiu-jitsu stuff and you're getting punched in the face, it doesn't always work. And we saw that. He took down Makachev at one point. Makachev sprang right back up, reversed the position. And I just think he's one of the best, most complete fighters in the division right now. And so we'll jump to, who do you want to see him take next? Do you think he deserves a Chandler? RDA seemed like a good one. That's who he called out. I don't want to see a Tony Ferguson. Does that interest you? What do you think's next?
Yeah, I like the RDA fight, or I like the Dan Hooker fight. I want to see him. I think the Michael Chandler's has kind of got his eyes on the bigger fight. Justin Gaethje's and people like that. And I think Justin Gaethje, he doesn't have the name value yet, does he, Makachev? He's got a bit of the Khabib rub, but in terms of really making some money in this division, which is full of killers. I understand why people are avoiding him, because it's not necessarily going to be an exciting fight. You know how much credit you're going to get for beating him. He's still an up-and-comer. So I do get it, but I like the fact that Dan Hooker's there. He's calling them out. I think that would be a good test, and I like the RDA one, but we've been speaking about that for a while as well. So they're my two main ones. I don't really want to see him in with Tony Ferguson. I don't understand what he gets, fighting a guy off 3 losses. What do you think?
Yeah, that I don't want to see Tony Ferguson. I'm a huge Tony Ferguson fan. Don't want to see him take another loss. I want to see him go in there with someone competitive. But as for what's next for Makachev, I really think you give him the co-main event slot on the pay-per-view that you put Poirier and Oliveira on. And I don't know who fills the other side. Maybe you go Dariush could be a good one. You need to give him a guy that's going to put him in a position where if he goes out there and performs, he gets a title shot. Because let's face it, that's what they want. Conor's out. He's hurt his leg. He's not coming back. Who do they want to challenge for that belt next? It's going to be a Gaethje coming off a hectic knockout over Chandler, or it's going to be a Makachev who they can build as this next Khabib. And I think putting him in the co-main of the title fight is the perfect position to have him go out there and prove himself and then get him straight into a title fight next year. Is that unrealistic, or what do you think?
I like that Dariush fight as well. I think Dariush is in a similar position where he's highly ranked, but there's not going to be guys, chomping at the bit to get a fight against him. He hasn't necessarily got that name value either. So, and the two guys, the winner of that could potentially be one fight away from a title shot. So, yeah, I do like that one. Yeah, I think Dariush, Hooker, RDA, they're the type of fights he wants. And then there's obviously, you've got your Chandlers and Gaethje's. They seem destined to fight at this point. And I don't think they want to fight downwards. And that's okay. Not everyone wants to, go down into the rankings. Everyone wants to be aiming higher, and that's fine too. But Makhachev, there's plenty of options, and it's opening up. It's just the time is now. We can't have him, fighting down, unranked opponents anymore, or he needs to start building up. He's ready to go. 29 years old. He looks like a killer. Let's prove it.
And, he's a victim of circumstance here because, if Conor lost that fight last weekend and didn't take the hectic injury he did take, Makhachev would have called him out here, and that would have been a big story behind this. They could have built him off Conor if they were willing to do that. But obviously, Conor's out for a while. So, hey, maybe if Makhachev can get himself close to that title, maybe one fight away when Conor's ready to come back, and if the UFC doesn't want to throw Conor straight in there in a title shot because... as if they don't want to do that. But I'm just hypothetically, maybe they could do the Makhachev versus Conor fight as the number one contender to fight for the belt if Dustin's holding it. Do you want to see that at all, or do you think there's just no point in putting him there with Conor at any point?
I think it's an exciting fight just because it's got the backstory. Khabib's obviously going to be there. That you've got the rivalry between the two teams. Does Conor want that? Does Conor... I think... It's going to be interesting to see what Conor does when he comes back. I feel like the UFC will just give him a title shot and be pretty happy about it. If Dustin Poirier's got the belt, we've seen, people come in worse. Like Masvidal got a title shot, and his loss to Usman was worse. Yeah, you just get the. So I wouldn't be surprised if they push him straight into it. But then again, this is a fun one. For the fight fans, but there's plenty. When Conor McGregor's involved, there's always fun fights, but that is a nice little side story, and I'm sure the UFC would love telling that one. But plenty of options for Makhachev right now. Very excited to see what he does, and just hopefully people start putting their hands up now. He's a main event fighter. He's got all the skills. He's with Khabib. He's potential superstar. And until now, it's been a struggle to get him fight. So hopefully we can get him some.
Hopefully. We'll jump to the co-main then. Miesha Tate came back after a long layoff to take on Marion Reneau in her last fight. And, I thought Tate looked really good. Obviously, she got the win. She got the TKO finish in the third. But I don't know how much stock I give this win, especially Reneau being in her last fight. I don't know how much... She seemed to be like she was fully into it. I'm not trying to discredit her performance at all. But what did you think of Tate's return and her victory here?
Yeah, I think she looked as good as you can possibly ask for, really. Obviously, it's not the best opponent, and it was Reneau, 44 years old, official, like on a way out. And I don't like it when they announce the retirement before the fight, because it feels like, like it's like your last shift in work or something. You're not fully there, or you're not doing the job you're meant to be doing. So I don't want to, again, she did put up a valiant effort, but I think, when the going got tough and she was on her back, if maybe she weren't committed to retirement, she would have been like, she would have fought through a little bit more. But just because she knew this is my final fight, why am I getting punched in the head? My pay is done. I've lost this fight. I might as well just, curl up and be done with it. But I think that was the first person to stop Renew as well. So it was a big deal. And I think we should say, look, brilliant. And it's onwards and upwards. It's a similar thing to Makachev. Now, these are not necessarily the fights we want to see her in. But this one was absolutely necessary. She needs to, just dip her feet in the pool before jumping straight in. But now I'm ready for her. I want to see her against Holly Holm or Irene Aldana or all these big names. I think she can, give a good account of herself as well.
And that Home fight was one that kind of sells itself, especially because before this, Home was asking for the fight with Tate. So, yeah, that you do that main event on Fight Night, 5 rounds. Obviously, the history there. She won the title over Home. So, yeah, that seems what's going to be next, don't you think?
Yeah, it's got to be 5 rounds. Like once you get to that level, if you beat Holly Holm, you're the next in line for the title. Basically, she's not a. I won't want to use the word gatekeeper because I do think on a day she's capable of becoming a champion again. But she is the measuring stick. If you're good enough, you will get past Holly Holm, and you'll set you up for a fight with Nunes. So yeah, I think that's the fight to make. I think there's lots to sell. Holm was winning the majority of that fight before getting caught, but Tate will fancy it too. It's got everything. I really do like that one.
The other one you could do is the Jermaine Durandamy fight as well. That's sitting right there. I mean, Durandamy is above Home, I believe, in the rankings. So if you want to put her in a title shot, she could beat one of those two fighters, I believe. Or Aldana could put her straight in a title shot. I don't know. I think UFC kind of wants to get her to the title because bantamweight's kind of cleaned out at this point. You got Aldana sitting there, but aside from that, Nunes has pretty much dealt with everyone. She's about to take on the number 5 ranked penner. So yeah, I think that's the UFC's plan to get her to a title. Any last thoughts before we move on?
No, of course they wanted in a title. It's Miesha Tate. You want to push your big names, and obviously I don't think you can give her one off the back of this performance. It was a great one, but she needs that signature name. So yeah, as you said, GDR, Holly Holm, Irene Aldana, any of them will get her a title shot. She doesn't have to do much. She's Miesha Tate. She's a legend. So it's great to have her back. And she's still only, I think she's 35, so she retired so early. Just a couple of bad performances. She's went off. She's had the family. And she's come back. Looks rejuvenated. It's great to have her back.
Absolutely. Before that, we had probably the best lightweight showing of the night when Mateusz Gamrot just tore the arm off Jeremy Stephens. What a brutal Kimura finish that was. And from the get-go, he was aggressive at the takedown. I believe the fight only lasted about a minute, and he managed to get the top position and just finish the Kimura. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, that's it for me. Just to touch on Jeremy's first, it's a bit worrying where he goes from here because that was one of them submissions where I don't think he get caught with that at featherweight. He kind of just got strong man and he grabbed his arm and ragged in and he just bully boyed him a bit. So that's a worry for Jeremy. But Gamrot looked brilliant and he's a brilliant fighter. And his record doesn't do him justice in the UFC 2-1, but he's a legit contender in this division. I want to see him press on now and go towards the rankings and start moving up them because I think he is, a potential champion. He's got everything it takes. I'm looking forward to watching his rise. But as I said, Jeremy Stephens, it's a worry for him. I think that's 0-5 now. Where does he go from here? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was beautiful jiu-jitsu from Gamrot. Like, it was textbook. Stephens went for the Kimura himself, and it got reversed, and then he just tore his arm off, man. Like, that was brutal. I was tapping for Stephens before he did. As far as what Stephens has next, I think you probably just do the Drakar close fight. If he loses that one, then he rides off in the sunset. But yeah, that fight needs to happen, I think. There's a lot of history after that face-off and whatnot. And I guess maybe both guys don't want to fight each other just because they don't like each other. But to me, that seems like the right fight.
Yeah, I think one last throw of the dice. As I said, Gamrot is legit as it gets, but it was just how dominant and how easy it was for him. It was worrying to see, Jeremy Stephens, he's been pretty competitive even with the best featherweights in the world. So to step up against someone who isn't even ranked yet, although he's got the talent, he's not ranked yet. He's not at that upper echelon level. See him get handed, so easily handed with, is a worry. Especially 5 in a row now. He's getting old and all these things. But as you said, the Drakar close does sell itself. Even fight week, he was talking it up or he was talking it down. But now it is the time. I think. Yeah, Close was coming off that good win. I think it was against Jai Herbert. So yeah. Oh no, it weren't. Sorry, that one got cancelled. But yeah, close Stevens is the fight to make. I agree.
And Gamrot needs a top 15 guy next, I believe. You give him a Diego Ferreira. Who else is sitting there? Brad Riddell, possibly. I don't think Gregor Gillespie would be right. I think Gregor Gillespie probably deserves someone closer to his rank because he's 9, if memory serves me correct. Who else do you think there is for Gamrot right now? He definitely needs a 15 guy, right?
Yeah, so you got Brad Liddell. Is Brad Liddell in there? Drew Dober, that type of names, I think. Someone with a rank. Greg Gillespie, I wouldn't mind either. You know, Greg Gillespie is only one fight back from a vicious knockout loss as well, so he's still got some work to do. But anyone 10 to 15 is a good match for him. I think he's got the ability. I don't think he's already a champion outside of the UFC. There's no need to slow him down too much. He's got everything, and he showed there that's what he's going to do with these lower ranked guys. I think he's just going to run through them. So yeah, want to see him top 15. I'll do Brad Liddell pops out to my mind if they get maybe that fight set up for the Volkanovski Ortega card. That would be cool.
Yeah, that would be a good one. We'll move on. Middleweights. Rodolfo Vieira came back after that embarrassing submission loss from, was that earlier in the year or last year? It was earlier in the year. I don't think it was last year. Mm-hmm. He comes back off that submission loss, and he looked like a kickboxer on the start of this fight, didn't he?
He looked great. He looked, that's what you want to see from, a feat like that. He showed everything. Obviously, first thing, he had the tank. He was busy. He was doing things. He looked calm, cool, collected, but he was, he looked like he had the energy to go all 3 rounds and pretty comfortably. So besides that, he also added some boxing to his game. As he was just jabbing the head out of Dustin, and he couldn't, I think that's what, caused all the issues. And then to actually get the finish in the end, it looked like he was kind of coasting to a decision. And then next thing, he's on the neck, and it was a, beautiful, beautiful submission. There's a picture of him, Dustin's half falling out the air, squeezed it, like panicked for his life as this guy's strapped on his back. So in terms of comeback performances and right and wrongs and doing all the things he needed to do, he looked fantastic. He did.
Yeah, he looked great. He looked improved. But the thing is, before we saw him lose, when he was on this tear of just first round finishes, I thought you could put him in there against the top guys and he'd just mow through them, right? But I just don't see that anymore. And even in this fight, even though his striking looked good, he had a nice jab, was sticking to the basics and keeping him at range. I think that his problems, he's got 2 in my opinion. His gas tank still isn't where it needs to be. He had more energy in the tank. He could have gone the full 3, but he looked so tired in that 3rd round. Like before he got that finish, he probably still would have won it. Let's not get it wrong. He probably still would have won by decision, but he did look quite tired. So I think he's got to address the gas tank. And half of that might be the weight cut because the dude's huge. Maybe cutting weight is just wearing him out. Who knows? But the other thing is mixing the martial arts. I think that right now his technique is kind of, I'm going to stand here, I'm going to kickbox you, and if I can't do that, I'm going to shoot in and try and take you down. He's not doing the best job at blending the 2 together, but obviously he's learning the striking after being a world champion jiu-jitsu guy, so it's going to take him some time and some ring time, in there with guys trying to take his head off to work out how to blend these best together.
Yeah, it happens with all these BJJ guys who come over a bit later. I think he's 31, so and he's only 8-1 as his record. So 9 pro fights, and he's already in this position, and so hyped. He's gonna get found out, and we've seen that last time. But I think he showed improvements, and I don't think there's a need to rush him to the top. He's got to carry on coming through these lower ranked guys and doing the right things, doing it right, not rushing. I think sometimes when you're a bit older and you're a bit late to the sport, people try to rush to the top, and problems arise, and they will arise. So, but in terms of coming back from a really tough loss, I think he showed everything. I don't think there's much more you can ask for, and you can just ask for him to build on this in the next fight. So, always exciting, and he's an exciting guy, and I think the UFC understand that he's a good guy to have around because he's got a fan base. He's a savage on the mat, and as you said, he's a big chunk of a man. Like, he's a huge guy, and I think that's why he ties as well. It might not even be the cut, it might just be all this muscle he's carrying. It's tough. So but I've honestly got nothing bad to say. It was a really good performance, good comeback.
No, I might have been too critical there. I thought it was a great performance as well. We'll move on to the first fight on the main card, which was the featherweight fight of the night, which you called, between Gabriel Benitez and Billy Quarantillo. Thoughts on this one?
They're just 2 fun fighters. It's just, it's one of them where Billy Quarantillo is always in fun fights, and I think he was coming off a loss before this against, who was it who got him? Gavin Tucker, and that was the fairly boring fight, and that was because he was on the losing end. But when he's winning, he's in there, he's throwing punches and he's taking punches as well. He's a tough guy, and Gabriel Benitez has been in a few fun fights too. So it always had what it took to, be Fight Night, and I was really glad to see that he actually took it. And and for Billy Contino to step on the gas and actually get that finish in round 3 was, it's a brilliant win. And I look forward to seeing both of them next, but especially Billy. I think he's a really fun player in the featherweight division. He's not necessarily a contender yet, but I think it's going to be fun watching him potentially rising into that, spot.
Couldn't have said it better. It was a real fun fight. Deserved fight of the night, so I'm happy both of them took home a bonus. Before we wrap up this card and move on to previewing this weekend's card, I just want to grab one more fight off the prelims, which was Amanda Lemos versus Monserrat Ruiz. Just a dominant performance by Lemos here to get the finish in 35 seconds. But what did you think of the stoppage in that one?
I didn't mind it because she was all over the place. It's just, obviously, when the referee stops in, the fighter does have a minute to get or like a millisecond to get themselves together. So if the referee didn't step in, she would have carried on getting hit. So I don't think there was, and it's not like she could have. I didn't see her coming back and surviving that. It's just obviously the footage doesn't look great because she was standing there with a guard up, kind of ready to go. So but I didn't mind it. I just think it looks bad. It did look bad.
Yeah, it was weird she didn't get a bonus for this, but I think it might have been because of the stoppage that she didn't get a bonus, because otherwise, 35 seconds, second fastest knockout in the women's strawweight division, and she didn't take any damage in this fight. So, I don't know why she didn't get a bonus. Maybe it was the stoppage, not too sure. Anything else in this card before we move on?
No, they're being pretty generous with bonuses as well, so I am surprised to see she didn't get one at all. And no, she didn't. Weird. Yeah, weird. I think she deserved one. It was a savage performance, and we were saying going into the fight, we're not sure what to expect from Ruiz because her first performance was so, dull for a better word. Besides the end, and we didn't know what to expect, and apparently we shouldn't have expected much because Lemos actually ruined it. So yeah, besides that, Daniel Rodriguez, late replacement opponent, got a good win, and it was a good card overall. I think it delivered more than a lot of people would have been expecting.
100%. We'll move on. Next weekend, we have a bigger card. We have the former two-time bantamweight champion of the world, TJ Dillashaw, taking on the number 2 contender, Cory Sandhagen. I don't think I need to speak on this too much, but obviously Dillashaw is coming back from a 2-year suspension here, and a big task for him in his return, isn't it?
Big task. It's the biggest task in like at this weight class to go with Cory Sandhagen in this type of form. He's been murdering everyone, and Dillashaw, coming off the source and 2 years off on the sidelines. It's as tough as it gets, but he's clearly got confidence in himself to be stepping in. But I think he knows if I get by Sandhagen, who I think is someone he has trained with in the past, he might have had a few better rounds in sparring. I get by him, I'm straight back to where it was back in a championship fight. So, yeah, high risk, high reward for both guys in this one. Looking forward to it. It's a huge fight.
And yeah, they have trained together. I was listening to a podcast with him, and he was saying it was ahead of the Renan Barao fight, I believe. That's when they trained together. And according to some people, Sandhagen got the better of him. According to other people, Dillashaw was handling him pretty well. So it'll be interesting to see how it turns out in the cage. Obviously, both guys have changed dramatically since then. Sandhagen has become a murderer in his last 2 fights. Before that, he's put on good performances, But these last 2 fights are both highlight reel knockouts. First against Marlon Moraes, then against Frankie Edgar with probably the greatest flying knee that I've seen this year. Look, this is going to be a tough fight, but I think that it's going to come down to, can Dillashaw put the pressure on and work him against the cage and lead the action, or will Sandhagen be able to just pick him apart and use his more dynamic striking to win this one?
Yeah, I think the size might come into it. Like TJ Dillashaw is at his best when he really gets flowing and gets inside people's, in range and is able to let them fly. But every time you step into Sandhagen's range, there's danger. The knees come out of everywhere. Things just hit you, spinning kicks, all these things. So I think he's going to have real problems. And then also the fact that he has been on the sidelines for so long, there will be some rust there. And I think he'll have to feel himself into the fight. But against Sandhagen, it's not that easy, because if you're getting hit by him, it's usually, finishing shots. So I think TJ's got his work cut out. But, you can't write him off. He has been a champion. He's been there, done that. And Sandhagen hasn't. And in Sandhagen's biggest fight to date, he fell short, didn't he? And he fell short pretty spectacularly against Aljamain Sterling. So very interested. Very, very exciting to see how quickly he's worked his way back into the spot. And, I'm very glad that he's getting this fight against Thiago Dillashaw, because if he wins this, there's no doubt about it. He's the number one contender. He can sit and wait for Aljamain and Peter Yan to play it out, and he'll get the next shot.
Yeah, and obviously vice versa. If Dillashaw wins this, he'll sit and wait as well. That Aljamain Sterling fight is a big factor in this, I think, because Dillashaw is no stranger to grappling. He's got pretty good wrestling. His jiu-jitsu is pretty mint. So do you think that he takes an approach like Aljamain did to try and push him on the cage with kicks and then get a hold of him, take him down and work him? We saw Frankie Edgar try to do that to Sandhagen. Didn't quite go his way. Do you think that's going to be in the mind of Dillashaw in this one?
I think on the feet, it's a 50-50 fight, or maybe in Dillashaw's it's a 50-50 fight. But for me, it heavily favours Sandhagen on the feet. I think he's just rangy. He'll tag him. On the floor, and especially as we said, if they've been sparring, and imagine, a young Sandhagen might have struggled with someone like Dillashaw, in the prime of his career, ahead of that Brow fight. Any type of wrestling, that's his bread and butter. That's how he, that's what he come off. He was a wrestling guy, come out of college straight into MMA. So, I think that's his route to victory. I think get this fight to the floor, test Sandhagen out, and see what he's got, see what improvements he's made, because it hasn't been that long since Sterling was able to get him really quickly with submission. So, Dillashaw might feel he can do the same.
So, final pick on this one?
I'm going Sandhagen. I think the time off, not being on the juice. I think, just momentum. I think it's time is now. I like the way he was on Joe Rogan's podcast as well. Sandhagen speaking about turning from, a fighter to a killer and wanting to go out and smash people. I like the way he speaks. I like everything about him. And I just think Dillashaw might get caught cold quite early.
Yeah, I'm taking Sandhagen in this one as well. I think he's more dynamic on the feet, and I just can't see him getting taken down. Like, I don't expect Dillashaw to come in there with the game plan of I'm going to take him down, which would be the one to have and the wise one. But I think Dillashaw is going to want to stand with him, going to want to try and knock him out, and I feel like he's going to fall into something and end up probably getting knocked out himself. But hey, hopefully this one's a 5-rounder. Hopefully we get a war here, but I just don't see it happening. Any last thoughts before we move on?
No, brilliant fight, and I know people were disappointed with the weekend gone. That main event, you can't have any complaints about this, and it feels like it's been in the works for a while. So I'll just be glad to get it over and done with, and see how this bantamweight division plays out, because it's probably the most exciting division in MMA right now. It's a super division. 2021. Hopefully, you get a few more big fights from it.
And this is the most exciting fight you can make, in my opinion, right now. So we'll move on. Women's bantamweight division. Aspen Ladd's back, taking on Macy Chiasson. I hope I said that right. For the co-main event here. I think Ladd's been out a little while, has she not? When was the last time she fought?
Let's have a look.
And Chiasson she fought earlier this year against Marion Renaud. She got a victory there, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, I think she had an ACL or something along them lines. She has been out since 2019, actually. So, yeah, long layoff.
Yeah, absolutely. So it'll be interesting to see how she comes back in this one. But I do expect her to win this. What do you think of this fight?
Yeah, I think she's another one in that division who's a potential contender, who's potentially, someone who Missy Tate might want to fight next, or with a win here. I think she's got everything it takes. We were all speaking about so highly about who was it last week who stopped Kunitskaya?
Oh, yep, blanking. Can't remember.
Let me see. Yeah, Aldana. That's stopped her. Looked a savage. Aspen Ladd also got a stoppage win over her as well, so it took a bit longer, but I think she's got everything it takes, and hopefully she looks back. Obviously, we've just been speaking about ring rush. She might have a bit of that herself, but I think in terms of level of opponent, this is a good level to come back to. I would expect her to win and look good doing so.
And if she does, look, she's got a bunch of options there. She's pretty close to a title herself if she can get this one here. I think the right thing to do if she gets a win is to do the Durandamine rematch, because obviously in their first fight, it was kind of controversial. Aspen Ladd got knocked down like 20 seconds or something, and the fight got called off not long after. There's a little bit of controversy there. I thought it was a fine stoppage, but that's what happens. So if she gets a win here, do you want to see that rematch?
Not necessarily. I do think it was pretty clean stoppage. But that's the only moment we've seen Lad look bad. So it wasn't just a blip. It was just one punch and it was all gone. So I would like to see that maybe down the road. Like I think GDR is kind of on the cusp of a title shot. So I prefer to see if she's gonna have a fight in the meantime, getting one of the bigger names. The Holly Holmes or the Misha Tates, Aspen Ladd. She could go in there with Irene Aldana if she beats Macy and dares to fight. Two of the more lesser known prospects on the way up, fight it out and see who's the best. So yeah, that's the way I'd like it. But eventually, as you said, there is some type of controversy, so they will do it again. They're both going to be at the top for a little while yet, so we'll get it down the road, I'm sure.
For sure. And before that, we got more bantamweights in the men's division. Kyler Phillips taking on Rulian Paiva. Phillips is ranked, I believe. I think he's ranked 14, possibly higher, because he just come off that win over Song Yadong from memory, and he looked pretty good in that one. So how do you think his fight goes with Paiva here?
Yeah, I think he looks sensational. He's a really tricky guy to nail down, and that's why Song Yadong had such issues with him, because he just couldn't get him down, lay a glove on him. He looked brilliant. So, yeah, I'd expect Phillips to win. I think he's been competing at this weight a little bit longer. I think this might be his debut or his first one in the UFC for a while anyway. So I think he's been competing at flyweight, maybe missed weight once or twice and is moving up now. So yeah, I expect Phillips to, pick him apart and look good doing so.
Yeah, I think it's kind of weird booking, right? Because Phillips is ranked. So you'd think you'd get someone even if they're not ranked themselves, just a bigger name that's been 15, because there's so many at bantamweight, so it's kind of an odd booking, but interested to see how it plays out. I mean, Paiva's record is not too bad, but Phillips also got a great record, and he's ranked, and he's a bantamweight fighter, so I would lean towards Phillips as well in this one. Before that, we got featherweights. Darren Elkins, who's always fun to watch, taking on Derek Minner.
I like Minner. I like the way he's come in. Got them. He dominated Charles Rosa, who is talented on the floor. Dominated him. Got that big win. He was a big upset win over TJ Laramie, and that was a big one as well. But Darren Elkins is one of them guys who, he's tough. He's been around a while, and he'll test you. If you're not good enough, you will not get by Darren Elkins, and he's a tough opponent. So this is a brilliant fight. I like this one. And it's going to be interesting. He obviously hasn't been in the best of form lately, but he got back in the win column last time out. Yeah, fun fight. I'd edge Minner just because he seems to have been a roll right now, but never write off Elkins. He's a tough guy.
All right, before that, women's flyweights, Miranda Maverick and Macy Barber's back again. Someone had a lot of hype and was on a pay-per-view in her last fight, I believe, right? Or was it just a co-main event slot? Anyway, she had so much hype behind her. Seems to have fallen a bit down after those two losses. Do you think she can get back in the win column here against Maverick? Yeah,
it's a tough fight for Maverick. Maverick is a real prospect, and so is Macy. But to put them together this early on in their careers, it's just it's a brilliant bit of matchmaking. Well, it's a tough bit of matchmaking as well. So Macy could potentially be on the back of 3 losses, but you beat someone like Miranda Maverick, who is really fancied. All the powers back to you then. So it's high risk again, but high reward. And I don't think Macy Barber looked bad in that last fight. I know she got edged out, but she was really coming on strong from memory. So, and she gave Alexa Grasso all she can handle. It just wasn't enough to get a decision in a 3-round fight. So with these 3-round fights, you've got to get off with a good start. You can't let someone get out in front. And Miranda Maverick, she looked like a savage, hasn't she? 24 years old. That win over Gillian Robinson was that, she looks brilliant. So this is got fight night, I think, written all over. And I think it's two really talented fighters who are potential champions down the road coming up against each other. Great fight.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. Obviously, both girls. I mean, what's Maverick? Is she coming off a win here, or is she coming off a loss? I feel like she's coming off a loss, but I could be confused. Let me have a look here. No, she's coming off a win over Gillian Robinson.
She's been tearing through it. She's Invicta champion, I think, or won the tournament and then come into the UFC. Dominated a lot of good girls, including Gillian Robinson, who's been knocking about in that top 15 for a while. So she looks like a savage. She's got everything. She speaks well. I think she's studying to be a doctor or get a doctorate or something like that. So she's She's a savage, and so is Macy though. So brilliant fight.
Absolutely. And before that, welterweights open the main card. Mickey Gall and Jordan Williams. Mickey Gall's coming off a loss to Mike Perry. He's had a weird UFC career. If I can explain his UFC career, it's been odd. What do you think about this fight here?
Yeah, I don't like the fact it's on the main card. I think Mickey Gall, he's kind of gifted his route into the UFC, and he's took advantage of it. But I think the UFC still to think he's got some name value, and I don't tend to agree anymore. He's a loss to Mike Perry, who has barely won anything recently. Diego Sanchez, same thing, barely won anything recently. So it's we haven't seen him, beat someone who's a legit fight in the UFC. Even Sage Northcutt was from the same realm, and it being built into something he weren't. So I'm looking forward to seeing him with Jordan Williams, because Jordan Williams is a tough guy. He come off that Contender Series, and I think he was up at middleweight last time, and he took a beating, but he took the beating, if you know what I mean. He took every punch. And let me just see who it was he fought, because it was a tough fight. It was a tough loss for him as well. Who was it? Yeah, Imam. He got battered in that one. I think that was at middleweight. So it's good to see him back down here. He's a tough guy, and he'll give Mickey Gall all the problems in the world. So it's a good fight. I think there's better fights on the undercard, though, that potentially should have been in that slot.
Yeah, I mean, Imavov himself is on the undercard, right? So that's an interesting one there. I'll throw it to you to go through these prelims and speak about the ones you want to speak about.
Yeah, well, obviously Chris Daukaus, I think he's a really exciting heavyweight prospect, and we've got a few, and we spoke about it a few times. He's in there with, I'm going to murder this guy's name, I'll call him Shamil. That's a good fight. You got Ian Heinisch on the undercard, Randy Costa against Adrian Yanez. That's a brilliant fight. That, for me, that's one of the better fights, full stop, on this card. So that's way down there as well. And then Andre Ules, Ciara Eubanks. It's a good card, really strong card. And I'm sure the critics who were chatting about Makachev's card last week don't have any issues with this one. It's a good card.
Yeah, great card, especially the main event. Really excited to see what goes down there. We'll jump on some news now. I just want to ask you before I look at this news, do you know how the sales went for UFC 264? Because I can't see them right now.
1.8 million is the number they're saying. So second best of all time.
Did you expect that?
Yeah, I thought it'd be even bigger. I honestly thought it might get past 2 million, just because, obviously working on the site and seeing the amount of traffic we've had through the site is, when it's Red Plenty Night for, the fighters fighting Conor, it is for us as well, because the amount of people consuming our content and things like that, it's been great. And for me, I've been in this job since February 2020, I think it was, or maybe March. This is the biggest event I've felt, so I had a feeling that it would be huge, and it was. I just not as huge as I anticipated.
Yeah, no, it's pretty good. 1.8. I mean, second of all time. That's bigger than what's that? That's bigger than Nate and Conor too. Because what's the biggest one? Khabib and Conor. Yeah,
Khabib and Conor would think was 2.3 million, and then before that, there's a bunch of. I think there's a few like 1.7s, 1.6s around there. So yeah, it was a monster fight. It felt like a monster fight coming in, and it's a shame that we didn't get the definitive ending we wanted. But I think that just makes the next one even bigger. So, and I think Conor McGregor knew that when he was lying on the floor, cursing everyone else. So
do you think a fourth one would be bigger?
Yeah, I do. I think people thinking the Mystic Max, predicting the next round. I don't think you can do that. The guy broke his leg. There's clearly animosity there, and I think he snapped straight into the fact that a fourth fight is inevitable, and I think it'll just be just as big because they hate each other more than ever. There is a question mark over it, although a lot of people say there isn't. I think there's still questions to be answered on both sides, and there could potentially be a title on the line. So I think they just keep getting bigger, these fights.
It'd be interesting to see if they end up doing it. We'll go to some other news. Frankie Edgar says Sean O'Malley fight makes sense. Is that a fight you want to see?
Yeah, absolutely. It's he's one of them guys. O'Malley really needs to get moving now. Like he is a young guy, and he's had all the time in the world to build himself into this spot. But now is the time. Frankie Edgar's there. He's not necessarily the fighter he once was. He's just coming off a knockout loss. I think Sean O'Malley might fancy that. I don't like the fact that Sean O'Malley keeps trying to skip to the front of the queue. You can't go from fighting Chris Mazzino, who, with all due respect, got his UFC call, by default, really, because they needed an opponent, jumping straight to Dominic Cruz, jumping straight to Cody Garbrandt and these type of fighters. You've got it anyway, and I think Frankie Edgar might be that perfect stepping stone between, the really, really top guys and a ranked opponent.
Yeah, well, I kind of disagree with the Dominic Cruz one there, because Cruz, I think, is a more realistic fight than Frankie Edgar. You look at their last fights. Cruz fought, who was his last one? I'm blanking on it here. Oh,
it was Casey Kenny, but
that's
Sean
right.
O'Malley hasn't fought or beat anyone of that.
No. But
so
look, Frankie Edgar's last fight was against Cory Sandhagen, so it's like I think that's more of a big jump than putting him in the air against Cruz. But hey, I want to see him fight Edgar as well, and I think, he needs to test himself at this point. I just don't know if the fight the UFC want to put together. You reckon the UFC is interested in putting this fight together? I
think so, because obviously that's the problem. Frankie's coming off that loss against a really tough fighter, but it was a bad loss, whereas Casey Kenny was competitive with Cruz. So Frankie's got the name, but also needs to take the step down in opposition. And, O'Malley, despite the hype, is a step down opposition. So I think it matches really well. It could headline a fight night. It could go on an undercard of a pay-per-view. Really, really fun fight, and it's one I'd like to see come off. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see who they match him up with. Yeah, 100%. And obviously, another piece of news here: Ali Abdelaziz pretty much said they're going to do the Covington fight now. He said some other choice things about wanting to see Covington go blind in the rematch, but we'll forget about that. Do you think it's a good move for them to do this rematch? Yeah, it's not necessarily one of them where Covington has earned it, through his performances. He beat Tyron Woodley and he beat him better than anyone before LowKick, so it was a good win. But you'd like to see him be more active. But the fact of the matter is, he had one of the best fights in welterweight history, so I wouldn't have hated it if they rebooked it straight away. So it's a really good fight, and it's just that welterweight division. It's all getting a bit crowded, isn't it? But hopefully, in the meantime, Leon and Jorge or Gilbert can fight it out, and we'll get some type of clear line of progression. Covington, then Gilbert or Leon or Jorge or someone, because it is a bit messy there. Okay, last piece of news and we'll wrap it up. UFC 266 had its main card shown off. You got Volkanovski versus Ortega headlining, Shevchenko versus Murphy in the co-main slot, and then Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler. Thoughts on the card? Yeah, I think there's a reason they've brought Nick Diaz and Robbie Lawler into this one, because it's not the strongest card ever. I think the hype around that Volkanovski Ortega fight has kind of died down, with all the delays, and then it's just Shevchenko. It's you don't want to disrespect these girls, but it's just levels to this game, and it just seems like another body for hair. So to see Nick Diaz 5 rounds against Robbie Lawler, it's perfect bit of matchmaking. I love it, and it takes this card from a bit meh to, I think it'll sell really well. Yeah, all great fights. Excited to see all of them. I like the move of making it 5 rounds. If it was a 3-rounder, I think it would have been kind of anticlimactic. I don't actually expect either of these guys to get a knockout in this fight. Do you think it goes the whole 5 rounds? Yeah, they're both so tough, and I don't think they're going to be, at least in the early rounds, I don't think they're going to be exchanging leather too much. I think they're going to be very cautious, because obviously Robbie Lawler has been shot shy anyway over the past few fights. Nick Diaz is going to be rusty as hell. For the most, he's been partying out in Las Vegas for the last few years. I know he's in brilliant shape right now, but that has been his life for a while, from what I can tell. So yeah, I don't think this one's going to catch fire early, but maybe towards then 4th and 5th rounds, when people start getting tired, when gaps start to show, it might explode into something epic. So I love the fact that it's 5 rounds, and I hope to keep making more of these 5-round fights, because sometimes you need 5 rounds. Yeah, I agree with you there. Anything you've got before we wrap it up? No, it's been great chatting, and it's the fights just keep rolling, don't they? Yeah, 100%. We'll speak to you after this weekend's cards, recap all the action from that one. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good week. Thanks, guys. Make sure to subscribe to the LowKick MMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.